Welcome to This Explainer. Right at this very moment, there is a bustling, incredibly energetic world operating deep inside you. Seriously. Today, we're going to explore the microscopic cities that literally make up absolutely all living things. So let's just dive right in.
Have you ever wondered what an invisible, microscopic city actually looks like? Imagine shrinking down past everything visible to the naked eye. You'd enter this wild, microscopic landscape teeming with intricate architecture, super busy transport highways, and incredibly specialized workers. And the crazy part? This isn't science fiction. These are the actual biological settlements building every single tissue and organ in your body. But, how did we even begin to map out this hidden universe?
Well, we owe it all to some pretty legendary explorers. Back in 1665, Robert Hooke first observed these structures. He actually named them cells because to him they looked just like the small, simple rooms that monks lived in. Pretty cool, right? Then, just a few years later in 1673, Anton van Leeuwenhoek used a little handheld microscope and became the first person ever to view living cells. And he famously did this by looking at pond water and scrapings from his own teeth. Gross, but effective. Fast forward to 1838, and Matthias Schleiden concluded that all plants are made of cells, which really helped found the cell theory. And finally, in 1970, Lynn Margulis blew our minds with the endosymbiotic theory, showing evidence that some of the specific structures inside these cells were at one point in time free living cells themselves.
So let's get into Chapter 1, The Secret Microworld. Because before we start walking the streets of our microscopic city, we really need to understand that not all biological settlements are built the exact same way. Basically, we have two main types of cellular settlements. First up are the prokaryotes. You can think of these kind of like simple, ancient villages. This group includes bacteria and archaea. They don't have a central mayor's office, what we'd call a nucleus, and they don't have specialized walled-off buildings. They're the simplest type of cell, rocking just a single circular chromosome. But then, on the flip side, we have eukaryotes. Now these are bustling, incredibly complex cities. They feature a true nucleus and highly specialized membrane-bound structures. This is the type of city that makes up plants, animals, fungi, and protists.
All right, moving on to Chapter 2, Meet the Organelles. It's time to step through the massive city gates of a eukaryotic cell and meet the highly specialized residents that keep this metropolis thriving day in and day out.
We actually call the specialized townspeople and buildings of our city organelles. They're completely microscopic, and each one performs a very specific, totally necessary job for the cell to survive, grow, and reproduce. We're talking everything from manufacturing proteins to acting as tiny waste disposal units. And here's the fun part. These organelles don't just sit on dry land, they float within the cytoplasm, which is this dynamic, jelly-like medium that provides the perfect environment for all those complex chemical reactions to take place. When they all work together, this intricate animal cell functions as a highly organized metropolis. Just look at it. You have the central command station, you've got these winding highways known as the endoplasmic reticulum, specialized waste disposal facilities called lysosomes, and various power plants suspended right there in the cytoplasm. It is literally incredibly organized chaos, all working in absolute perfect harmony.
But it's worth noting that these cities come in different structural styles depending on the organism. While animal and plant cells share a lot of the same organelles, plant cities have some completely unique architecture. For instance, a plant cell boasts a really thick, sturdy cell wall for extra protection. Plus, they often feature a massive central vacuole, which is basically a giant water tower used for structural support and storage. Animal cells, on the other hand, rely on a much more flexible outer boundary and have far smaller storage units.
Which brings us to Chapter 3, the Command Center. Let's go visit the absolute most important, heavily guarded building in the entire microscopic city.
Say hello to the nucleus. You can totally think of this as the Grand Command Center, or, the mayor's office. It is absolutely vital because it holds all the master blueprints and the hereditary material for the entire organism. No nucleus, no blueprints.
So what exactly is locked inside this command center? Well, those core blueprints I mentioned, that's your DNA. Now, in a cell that isn't actively dividing, this DNA is all spread out and actually appears as a loose substance called chromatin. Deep inside the nucleus, there's also a highly specialized room called the nucleolus. And fun fact, some cells even have up to 3 of them. The nucleolus acts as a special factory churning out ribosomes, which are essential for making proteins. But here is the wildest part. This entire nucleolus structure pulls a literal disappearing act and just vanishes when the cell divides.
All right,
Let's jump to Chapter 4, Power Plants and Solar Panels. Because you have to ask yourself, how exactly does this bustling city power all of its factories, libraries, and transport highways?
Well, every city needs a reliable energy grid, right? And in our eukaryotic city, that crucial role is filled by the mitochondria. These are the ultimate, hard-working power plants of the cell. Their main job is to perform cellular respiration, which is basically a fancy way of saying they burn glucose to release usable energy. And get this, the more active a cell is, like, say, the muscle cells in your legs when you're running a marathon, the more mitochondria it's going to have in there pumping out power.
Now, the absolutely crucial point here is how this energy is packaged. The mitochondria generate something called adenosine triphosphate, or ATP for short. In biology, it's universally known as the molecular unit of currency. Just like you use money to buy your groceries, the cell uses ATP to literally pay for all of its daily activities. The ATP molecule is incredibly versatile. It stores energy tightly within its chemical bonds, just waiting to be spent on the majority of cellular functions whenever the cell needs it.
Now, if we briefly jump back over to the plant city, they have an amazing extra energy trick up their sleeves. Right alongside their mitochondria, plant cells have these brilliant green solar panels called chloroplasts. These organelles do something magical. They use the sun's energy directly to manufacture their own food, glucose, through the remarkable process of photosynthesis.
Next up is Chapter 5, the Packaging Department. We are heading right into the manufacturing district to see exactly how our microcity carefully processes and ships out its precious cargo. Let me introduce you to the Golgi bodies. Under a microscope, they honestly look exactly like a stack of flattened pancakes. They act as the city's busy post office. Their job is modifying, sorting, and packaging up molecules that have just arrived from those endoplasmic reticulum highways, getting them all ready for storage or, in a lot of cases, for transport completely out of the city.
Let's walk through this whole shipping process, because it's pretty fascinating. It happens in 3 elegant steps. Step 1. The Golgi body receives raw proteins at its receiving side, which is known as the cis face. Step 2. As the materials move through those pancake-like stacks, they get modified, sorted, and meticulously packaged. And finally, Step 3. Little bubbles called transport vesicles pinch off from the shipping side, known as the transface, to deliver the finished goods exactly where they need to go. Seriously, it's a total logistical masterpiece.
Finally, we arrive at Chapter 6, Growing the Microcity. As we wrap up our tour today, we really have to ponder a major structural mystery. Just how big can these microscopic cities actually grow? Like, why aren't we all just made of one giant cell?
Well, it all comes down to math and logistics. You see, as a cell grows, its internal volume, the sheer amount of space inside, increases much, much faster than its outer surface area, the cell membrane. Imagine a real city where the population just absolutely explodes, but the number of roads leading in and out stays exactly the same. Total gridlock, right? If a cell gets too big, its surface area is no longer great enough to get rid of all the toxic wastes, or to bring in enough food and water to support the massive volume inside. So when it hits that limit, the cell simply must divide to survive. Which leaves us with a really fun thought experiment to test what we've learned today. Think about a massive elephant and a tiny little mouse. Are the cells in an elephant bigger, smaller, or about the exact same size as those in a mouse? Well, the completely counterintuitive truth is, they are almost exactly the same size. No way, right? The elephant doesn't have larger microcities, it just relies on millions and millions more of them working together. And that kind of makes you wonder just how many perfectly organized microscopic cities had to divide, cooperate, and build to create the incredibly complex universe that is you. That's all for today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explanator.